Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of GNN. Today is January 18th, 2023, and we have another banner night on our hands here. But before we get into the details of our brand new mobile suit, let's go over some news. Alright, so it's been speculated for a very long time, and a quick shout out to Spider Chief, which I know he's changed his name recently, but this goes out to you because you've been speculating this for quite some time. And well, to kick it off towards the end of January, it's finally here. The 7th unit Gundam is finally here. It's a 3-star suit, which we'll get into the details shortly. I'm pausing a bit because it's so funny because of the fact that this has been one of those suits that people have been naming for a long time, and we surprisingly got the first iteration of the full armored version of the 7th Gundam, and so the G07 is finally here. Jumping into the bottom part of our news here, as a limited supply drop notice for the full armored ZZ Gundam, not to be confused with the FAZ, but the actual full armored ZZ Gundam, the 700 cost support, has been reissued. So if you've never had a chance to get this suit, well, with its recent buff, it might be still pretty decent now. I know some people still run it. So again, this is your chance to get it, and it definitely can still do the deed. Going into the recycle ticket counter portion of our news, the Xanthos, the other variant of the Gelgoog Vertex, is now available for the recycle ticket counter. This is a, I believe, 650 native. I'm pretty sure it's 600, just like the regular Vertex. So it is a support, so if you enjoy the wide array of weapons, which also includes a quick turn ability for the support, it might be pretty cool. Add to the collection, add to the hanger. There are changes to the DP exchange counter as follows. We now have the level 1 version of the Bilorent is sold. This is, I believe, a native 550 general, which has the verticality of the regular Bilorent as well. It does have 2 melees, pretty neat. And we're also getting the level 1 version of the GM2 semi-striker. So I believe this is a 400 cost raid for the semi-striker. Pretty decent, a little squishy, but all sorts of fun if you like that type of action there. In addition to that, we have a new entry in our situational battle mode, which includes skirmish on the sand, which if we switch over here, I know it's a lot of switching, right? This is a 0083 themed party with the Albion's crew of the GPO1, 2 GM Customs, and 2 GM Cannons in the mix here. Excuse me, I am fighting some allergies right now. Apologize for the outburst. We do have 2 F2 Zaku's in the mix. I believe this is a typo. We don't have a 550 Zaku 2 F2 yet. I believe it stops at 450, so I'm assuming this is what I mean by that. 450. Apparently we have a 300 cost one, although it probably would be just for simplistic sake, just to make all 3 of these 450, since we also in this mix up here, we have a 450 cost Dom Tropen. So 3 generals. And the typo here being the Zaku 2 heavy arms. It's a general. I mean, yeah, it's not a general to support. So you have that in the mix there. So very squishy supports in contrast to the 3 generals that have slightly less of a problem. So I know they're going with the scenario to mix things up, but this might be an incentive to maybe if it's even feasible with the way that the game is structured, to add additional levels, because I know I keep joking about the 700 cost Grandpa Gundam with the level 7 Hyper Hammer. Yeah, that would be crazy. Anyways, if you guys are not familiar with the situational battles, basically it is a 5v5 situation where people are randomly assigned to certain suits. In this scenario here, you do not know what you're running, you do not know what your teammate is running, and you sure as hell don't know what the enemy team is paired up with. So if you recognize some familiar faces, or some familiar names rather, on the other team, you do not know what they're running until the action happens. So the rewards for finishing the steps, the first one's going to be a 300 cost F2, which is not bad if you are trying to conserve those DP resources, especially if you're unlocking stuff and you don't really care for the F2, but now you do. Additionally, you do get, by completing everything else besides the mobile suit, you do get an extra 50k DP, which is great for tuning purposes. So I believe that is it in that regard. Of course, the clan matches have been updated as well. So on to the details of our new suit. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned before, the G07 is finally here. This is a 3-star general at 500 cost. This was a suit that was completed post 1 year war under the Federation's FSWS plan. I'm pretty sure there's an actual official acronym for that, so I'm just gonna keep it simple. It is one of the suits just like the Alex during the late 1 year war. It has a 360 monitor, high output generator. This one has also altitude control verniers, so this also has a lot of fun stuff, as it's technically the last of the regular 78 series. This also has a phase 2 supplementary armor, which means there might be a super full armored 7th maybe down the road, but I don't know, hard to say considering we don't have the Deep Striker yet. But considering the shenanigans that we have with the ZZ-MSV, the Nightingale, and all the other large suits like the Nomides and so forth, I wouldn't dismiss that right off the bat. But yes, this is a suit that can be also utilized in space and in the ground, and if you're lucky to do 10 pulls for it, you do have a chance to get the Ko-Uraki normal suit from 0083. This is probably the very same suit that the pilot Philip Hughes, sorry, I think I'm screwing up names here, so don't quote me on that, but the pilot for Battlefield Record 081, who eventually pilots the 7th Gundam, that's basically what they wear too. So they didn't really have the major uniform change till probably post 0083, pre-Zeta, especially with the Federation suits. So on to the nitty-gritty details of the new Gundam. Alright folks, we are at 500 cost here with the G07, the 7th Gundam, if you will. Mine is a bit tuned, as I was overly excited to jump into it. Going down the line of things, 15k HP is kind of low compared to other generals, other Gundam types, if you will. And even to add injury to insult, the base Gundam at level 3 has 3k HP more over it. Not sure if that's a design oversight, we'll see. Considering we are approaching the end of January, I would not be surprised if they decide to tweak this a little bit, but it does kind of give me some Tristan vibes. The only exception with that is when you look at the resistances, it has 17, 19, and 18 respectively. It is a melee suit, as we can kind of just skim the weapons that it has. So the points in terms of attack power is more leaning towards melee. It does have some range strength to kind of compensate, or rather complement the weapons that it has. It's beam rifle, or in the case of what it's able to use on the side is the hyper bazooka, as well as the beam gun and grenade launchers that the 7th, I believe, is known to have. Going into movement properties of the G07. This thing's stupid fast for a 500 cost suit, especially if we are to compare it to the original Grandpa. Walking speed is 135 with a boost, high speed boost of 210. Thruster gauge sitting at 65 is actually pretty good, considering that I know even with like slower suits, you do feel the thruster gauge when it hits that 50 mark or that 55 mark. So definitely a little more, I would say, forgivable in that sense, especially if you are trying to run, or if you feel like running stock thrusters in this case. Turning speed is at 60, so that's not bad, but I would say the biggest blemish right now is with its resistance and HP pool, which I know a lot of people are probably going to be addressing pretty quick. Going into the primary weapon, it does have the standard G07 beam rifle. I believe, just to kind of jump into 550 for a second in our little comparison, the full armor 7th, actually they both use the same, I believe the same rifle, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just scroll back here irresponsibly. So we do get that 450 meter range, so this is a very powerful, I would say fairly quick charging rifle that has a good amount of reach. Most Federation based weapons that require charge are usually sitting at around 400. This has a little more overhang to kind of almost counter snipe supports a little bit, or anything that you know, requires a little more range than normal. So this is actually not too bad. The heat rate is probably going to be kind of hurting a little bit, but playing in testing wise, this has a 55% I believe build stun when you fire it normally, and then you fire like other weapons like your Vulcans, which we'll get into a second, or the beam gun, and it does cumulative damage. So right now my mind might say the Hyper Bazooka is probably a little more straightforward, but I think the long run to really perfect this suit in terms of like your ability to learn and play this is going to probably be stemming from the beam rifle, and rightfully so, because going into the primary melee, standard saber swings, I wouldn't say standard in like your sides, but like the neutral to downswing animations for the single saber is very non-Federation. So this one actually has a the G07 actually has a very unique saber swing. It does a sort of underslash and then a chop, very similar to, I would say not 100% similar, but it's a similar in the motion to the Ifrit, regular Ifrit. So it's not the same, it's not like the Zaku chop, but it is a downward chop. So getting used to that would be pretty easy. 2.5 seconds with a 1950 base power. And even going to my pride and joy, the Hazel Custom, it's a little bit behind, but you do have to remember that this is post 1 year war. And even if we do match it up to Grandpa there, which is about maybe 100 to 200 points, give or take, it's not bad, especially when you consider the amount of points that are devoted rather in this base configuration towards melee strength. It's got a base of 35 right off the bat, and then if you do decide you want to full tune this thing, we're immediately jumping up another 6. So if we're looking at this, we're probably jumping at 41 stock once we full tune this thing. Alright, going into the sub weapon category, we have, they call the Gundam 7th Vulcan gun. Personally, they should just called it Vulcans, honestly. Base power of 110, 40 shots with a effective range of 175 and a 9 second reload. Now this is the I believe 5% standard. Good, decent rate of fire. It does stun in 20 shots, so pretty good to kind of complement the beam rifle to Vulcans. Very similar to, I would say, the Alex. So a lot of people that have been playing that way, they're gonna have an easy time to kind of set themselves up. It's a little more advanced play, I guess you could say. It also has a dual saber mode. Base power 2400, 3-second cooldown. So this is going to be a little more unforgiving if you whiff and you're trying to chain your combos a bit in melee. This thing's really weird too because your side swings are normal Federation style or similar to Federation style. As soon as you go into neutral downswing, neutral is, I would say, very familiar, kind of almost reminds me of the Tristan. But the downswing for this, for the G07 with the dual sabers, is very ridiculous. It's kind of, I don't know, it feels like I'm watching a wushu show or something, but it's very fancy, followed by, or finished off rather, by a thrust. So it's gonna take some time for folks to kind of nail it down. But if you nail it, it can do some pretty serious damage if you are caught by that. Going into the other weapon, we're going into the armed grenade launcher. This does not fire 2 at a time. It does fire 1 at a time with a 5-second cooldown time. Base power of 1200, 250 meters effective range with 4 total shots, and a 15-second reload time. So this is going to be your other dedicated stun if you feel like charging the beam rifle is a no-go, or it's going to take too long, even though 2 seconds is not very long, but maybe say your heat is playing tricks on you and it hasn't cooled down quite enough to get charging. Yeah, so definitely a nice chunk of damage here. These are pretty nice. The beam gun, I believe, does stun in 4, and this has a base power of 400, 200 effective meters, 15-second overheat, no cooldown time between the shots. It's not super slow, but it does come out fairly reasonable, and this is going to be nasty. Especially if you have to worry about, say, a level 2 full armored Alex, as an example, suits that have ballistic resistance, things like that. I mean, this thing's going to be... I don't think it's going to be super good against it, but I would say it definitely can help and contribute to countering enemy raids, essentially, if, say, your front line is struggling a bit. It does come with a shield too. This one has a base HP of 4,000. Now, granted, I'm going to look at my Hazel really quick, and we're looking at about 5,000. So this is on the lower end at 4K, but I think once we do consider tuning as well, it does shoot up to by 1,300. So full tuning this does bump you up to 5,300. So a little bit more than, say, some of the other suits that may possess, say, large shields. But they may or may not have advantages in that regard. So jumping into the shopping list of skills that the G07, the Gundam 7th, has. Of course, it has a roll. This actually comes with anti-blast as well, considering this is, I would almost say that's kind of a standard fare for any type of suit that's more melee oriented. That's kind of like a given, it needs to have it. Otherwise, it's kind of like defeating the purpose of it even having anything. This also has flight control 2. Balancers, pretty standard. I don't see something like this not having balancers. This has level 2 ambox, so this is a lot more space oriented, or has a little more affinity for space. Force injector 2. 2 swings, hence the melee combo controller 1. Of course, the radar. This also has a shield tackle, which, jumping back to the Hazel, sorry, I know it has some similarities, so I'm like thinking the, I'm thinking about enhanced tackle. I'm looking at the shield, shield reinforcement, or the shield tackle, and I'm like, it's kind of weird because usually I'm so used to seeing the enhanced tackle that it gives you kind of a little more figures to kind of understand it. This is kind of like a flat, I guess, modifier, I would imagine. Increases damage dealt by tackling if the shield's still there. If it's not there, you don't get the effect at all, which is kind of like, okay, that's great. It's probably useful in a way, but it's just like, all right. Could have been cool, but it's one of those moments, basically. This also has EX boost, so I've seen a little bit of Twitter in action, some of the more prominent, more I can't really say no lifers, but folks that play this a lot. Basically they've already started running this kind of like almost like what used to be with the SCR in a way. Some of the other suits that also have EX boost, so it's kind of nuts having that additional 20 seconds, especially when you're so close to just like overheating. It just, I don't know, it's pretty cool seeing this like just zoom around, and then having the 135 paired along with that, and the I would say decent boost for a post 1 year war suit. This is gonna be basically, yeah, this is kind of like a low cost Tristan almost, with just shenanigans going for it. So yeah, I almost kind of can't wait to play this during the weekend, but at the same time I know this is gonna be a problem, considering that if we look at the stock numbers on here, it is gonna be kind of a pretty much a glass melee cannon in the literal sense. Like, it's got mobility going for it, but it's not one of those suits that likes taking hits at all. So we'll see. I'm pretty sure Friday's gonna be rough for me trying to figure out its secrets, but we do have a lot to work with. I mean, it's definitely no slouch in, I would say, self-sufficiency, but as far as taking hits, it's gonna be, it feels like it's definitely one of those flanking generals too, because of the melee nature that it possesses. So alright folks, that'll be it for tonight's recap of our brand new Gundam 7th, arriving as our latest banner for Gundam Battle Operation 2. If you guys enjoyed what you saw, found it very informative, please do not hesitate to hit that like and subscribe button. Definitely helps out the channel. But more importantly, guys, let me know what you guys think about this new suit. Do you think it's gonna be super strong? Do you think it's worth rolling for? Because I don't know. I'm kind of getting a mixed bag of impressions of this. But don't let me discourage you if this is one of your suits that has been in the back of your mind. You've been waiting for this for a very long time. If you like it, go for it. But what I can say is that there are some things that do make me kind of, I don't know, not quite scratch my head, but it is something that only time will tell if it's any good or not. So with that said, that's it for now. I will see you guys all on the next video. Take care.